Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Today's video is like a little weird, definitely gonna be a first of its type, but we're gonna like kind of do a market watch video, and I've done some of these in the past, very seldomly, but this is not really a market watch in the sense of like, this card's cheap, go scoop it up now. This is not really gonna be like that. More so what this is like trends I've been noticing in the secondary market that I want you guys to be aware of, because it really does speak to like how the card game like stock market works in a way. Like, I trade stocks very like at a novice level right now, but I did learn a lot about it from like playing card games, because cards do fluctuate in those types of ways. It's not obviously a one-to-one comparison, right? But it is pretty interesting to look at. These are just trends I think you guys should be aware of. We're going to talk about that in today's video, look at some prices. That being said, if you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys are looking for custom playmats, custom sleeves, any other TCG needs like that, go down to the description, use the link to yourplaymat.com, get 10% off your order, upload any image you want. I've actually been getting a lot of people in touch with Your Playmat, and they've been really liking the product, so I do really like that. This is a sponsorship that players are really enjoying. I think they make great quality product. They sent me some sleeves with the Crossword logo on them. I've been saying they're very similar in quality to Dragon Shields, which, if you guys know me, my favorite quality sleeve are definitely Dragon Shields for sure. These guys definitely run a pretty close comparison. So that in mind, if you're interested, check them out down in the description. Let's get on to the video. So this card right here is the main reason that I wanted to do this video. Launch Feminine Wiles, particularly the winter stamp, right? So I wasn't even thinking about this card. Now, truth be told, I have yet to own this card because I don't really have a locals to go and collect winter stamps or even regular TPs at, unfortunately. I'm kind of at the mercy of the secondary market like many of you guys are at, and we'll talk about some more of like the set 13 stuff in a bit here. But yeah, so with this card, I wasn't even thinking about it because I've never really been a launch player, and launch hasn't really been seeing too much play as of late. But I saw that Feminine Wiles did get reprinted in the most recent event pack, and I saw that like in the buy sell auction groups on the Facebook pages that the reprint was selling for about $18-20. Now, I think that is relatively reasonable, and as more event packs get distributed, I expect that price to drop even further. But seeing that be so low, normally on release these event pack cards are pretty expensive and then drop over time, like I was saying. But seeing that go for about $18 made me want to check in on the winter stamp version of Launch Feminine Wiles. It's a pretty essential card if you're looking to play the launch deck, which did a lot more things at the beginning of set 12, kind of fell off and hasn't really seen too much popularity yet in set 13. It kind of seems like there are stronger red decks to pick, but if you're looking to play like a blue-red shell, which not all the red decks can easily adopt, Launch is definitely a good pick for that. But yeah, so I wanted to go check on the winter stamp because back when Launch was more relevant, back at the beginning of set 12, this card was anywhere from like $50 to $70, even for the non-winter version of the card, which we'll take a look at in a second. But yeah, going to look at this dropping all the way down to $18 is very interesting considering the crazy price it was at. And we've seen this with TPs before, right? The unfortunate thing with TPs is that when they're first released, they are super expensive if they're good cards, right? Like, this is a really good card. A lot more people had higher expectations for Launch when it was first dropped, and that pretty much did live up to the hype. Launch did top here or there. Never was like one of the top decks of the meta or anything, but definitely was a really solid deck, and again seems to have like kind of fallen off in favor as time has gone on. But yeah, this card has certainly dropped to a much more reasonable price point. And again, one thing you got to consider with the TP cards is like COVID has a really big impact on this. Like, obviously COVID has a big impact on card games in general, but the whole TP situation is all sorts of messed up because of COVID, because a lot of times TP cards end up being worthless because you go to tournaments and you just get these things handed out like candy and the value just ends up plummeting, right? But with COVID, there have been far few locals, so these things have become much more of a rare commodity. But now we're in a stage in the country where a lot of states are opening up, so TPs are becoming a lot easier to get. So we might see this trend of cards that is starting to go down, and we'll talk about that a bit more in a second. But I did also just want to point out that the regular version of Launch Feminine Wiles is down to $12, and looking at the market price, even just like about a week ago, or I guess more recently than a week ago, it was in the $10 point. So anywhere between $10 $14. I think it's a good price for this card. Again, like something like this where locals are more in abundance, I think it would be nice if this was like less than $5 to be realistic, because you're paying a $5 entry to get into a tournament. But one of the other issues was, I guess, right around the start of COVID, they decided to really up the numbers of cards that are included in a tournament pack, which definitely makes the better cards more rare. And that was pretty bad timing considering that was right at the start of COVID for the most part. So with that in mind, again, hopefully more tournaments opening up, these cards should get cheaper and cheaper. But another card I decided to check in on after looking at the Winter Stamp Feminine Wiles was Goku and Vegeta Saiyan Synergy. Now this card has to be one of the biggest flops of any, like, you know, hyped up popular tournament pack card in recent memory, right? Because as this card came out, blue wasn't doing all that well, to be honest. Blue was a very rogue pick. You had Baby and a couple other really rogue blue decks here and there, but Goku and Vegeta Saiyan Synergy coming out was a lot of people's, like, you know, revisitation to blue. It was a lot of their big reason to revisit blue. A lot of players saw this card as just really insane, and I do think it's a good card, but I've thought the entire time that it was definitely overhyped. Like, you negate an attack, and then your opponent has to either attack this or their leader gets a free senzu bean, right? So anyone with a brain is going to just send their next attack to Goku Vegeta Saiyan Synergy, and that's cool because it is a one attack stopper that stops 2 attacks, right? 1 card for 2 attacks. That is pretty nice for sure, don't get me wrong, but a 1 for 2 attack stopper is nothing game breaking, right? Like, pretty much every color at this point has access to their different floodgates, like Nimbus, Topo, Makikabora has like Poutine now, for instance, Trunks, Rogue, Prospect, and Blue. Things like that. Floodgates that are able to stop multiple attacks across a turn, more than just 2 attacks in a turn, are obviously going to be way better than Goku Vegeta Saiyan Synergy. And I've kind of just noticed that from the beginning, but a lot of people really hyped up this card. This is another one that saw some really insane price tags. We see even more recently down here at the price points. And by the way, TCG Player, great job on editing your software here, because your new setup on the page looks absolutely amazing. If you guys want to check out TCG Player, buying any cards to talk about today, or any cards in general, link in the description to TCG Player. It does help the channel out a lot, and they do have a really nice looking new updated setup here. But anyways, yeah, this card's still sitting at $45 and has never seen an ounce of competitive play. Any of the blue baby decks, any of the blue decks in general, just have never played this card. It just hasn't been that good, because like I said, when you're comparing it to a Floodgate style card, this card just not as good. And honestly, Dimension Magic is going to be better 9 times out of 10 when compared to Goku Vegeta Saiyan Synergy. So with all that in mind, why is this card still $45? I think it's just really collector's market at that point, and that's one of the really weird things we've been seeing with card games in more recent memory, is a lot of these cards just being hyperinflated because of the collector's bubble. Now, I do think that collector's bubble is really starting to fall off. We've seen a lot of secret rares dropping down in price. We'll talk about one of those in just a second. This card going from anywhere as high as a $90 price tag to about half that here at $45. I actually still think this is pretty unreasonable, considering how I don't want to say unplayable, but kind of unplayable that this card is, but it is some really dope artwork. It is Goku and Vegeta, the 2 flagship characters of Dragon Ball. So if you're going to ask me, this is just totally a collector's bubble thing. Maybe it'll drop more over time, I'm not sure. But looking at the regular version of the card, still holding a $20 price tag when compared to the regular version of launch, or even the winter version of launch, that card actually saw meta top cut success. So comparing it to this, again, it just leads me to believe it's a collector's bubble thing, which I think is still kind of deflating as time is going on. But anyways, moving along, we're talking about Sin Shenron Corrupted by the Darkness. Now, the SCRs, I'm on record saying this, that when the SCRs for set 13 dropped, I think they were way too overinflated, right? So you have Sin Shenron, you have Rebellu, and you have SS3 Gohanks, none of which are inherently better than Supreme Kai of Time, Space Time Unraveler. These cards can be situationally better, but in terms of just being generically more powerful, you're definitely gonna look at Supreme Kai of Time, Space Time Unraveler as the best SCR, and that card demands over a $300 price tag. So I guess as far as SCRs go, it should be the most expensive one, $350-ish in that ballpark, still probably way too high. And again, that collector's market is probably going to cause that to dip off as time goes on. But yeah, I actually got wrecked by this because I ended up paying about $170 for my Sin Shenron just like a week and a half ago, not even all that long ago, but in such a short time it's already dropped to $140. And for an SCR like Sin Shenron, I do think it's a good card, don't get me wrong. Again, it's not going to be quite as good as Kai of Time in most scenarios. It's not even going to be as good as Heroine's Lineage in a lot of scenarios, but I do think come the right deck that this is going to be a really strong card, and a card you're going to want to have in your back pocket. So the 140 price tag I do think is much more reasonable. A lot of the cards talked about today weren't the most reasonable when it came to price. I think, you know, launch is still a bit expensive, but will continue to fall off. But this card here, for being a secret rare in the 140 range, I do think it is relatively reasonable compared to what we've known about secret rares for all this time. Next up, I did just want to mention SS Vegeta Switching Gears, one of the most sought after tournament pack cards coming out of set 13. This card was demanding a roughly $100 price tag directly upon release. Now we've got what, 2-3 weeks, almost 4 weeks into set 13. This card has seen its price slashed in half, and that's what I was talking about before, right? We're getting a lot more locals opened up around the country, so a lot more local tournaments are happening. So it is really nice that these TPs are seemingly going down in price much quicker. Looking at another card, Broly Astonishing Potential, which was a super essential card for the red Broly deck when that came out in set 11. That card demanded a $70-ish price tag, and it did hit 50 for a little while, but it stayed above 50 for a really long time, a couple months into set 11, because that deck was so strong and that card was so essential. So maybe this will float around 50, but with more tournaments opening up, more tournaments happening, I do kind of expect it to keep tapering down, maybe slowly but surely, but still tapering down nonetheless. So if you want to play King Vegeta, definitely keep an eye on this card. If it drops to about 30, maybe 20, I would definitely pull the trigger and grab it, but 30 is still a considerable price to pick it up, in my opinion, for how early it's going to be. But as the more time goes on, this card will drop to a pretty low price of probably roughly 20 bucks for as long as King Vegeta stays in relevancy. And the last card I want to talk about, obviously one is the most absurd card out of all the set 13 cards in the tournament pack, and that's SS3 Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire. Unfortunately, this one has not really seen that same price drop off as the Vegeta Switching Gears, which is kind of weird because like Vegeta Switching Gears is an absolutely essential 4 of. You should not play King Vegeta competitively if you don't have 4 of that card, but this can be a 2 to 3 of in Vegex. 4 can definitely be considered overkill, not the worst thing by any means, but 3 of this in Vegex is probably like your sweet spot, and other black decks like you're playing Gogeta Xeno, for instance, like 3 to 4 is probably your sweet spot in that deck. But yeah, this card, just no sign of slowing down. This card I think is still absolutely ridiculously priced. You will not catch me buying any of this until it drops to, I don't know, at least 40, but even then, like, I'm not going to be playing any decks that really need this card, so I'll probably wait for either a reprint or a really, you know, low drop off for this card. But yeah, I just wanted to talk some stonks with you guys, get some big brain plays out there. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Definitely very different, but I think we had a pretty cool discussion. So I do want in the comments below what you think about these cards, what you think about what I said about the theory of how these things kind of, you know, fall and rise. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.